The Last Word with Jonathan Capehart in for Lawrence O'Donnell starts right now. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Jen, thank you very much. We're going to jump right on into the show, given everything that's happening in China. Thanks, Jen. Have a good night.
Sure. Have a good night.
Tonight, we are monitoring the final hours of Donald Trump's two-day summit with President Xi in Beijing. Donald Trump and President Xi are expected to have a final bilateral lunch within the next few hours. Donald Trump will then depart for Washington. For more, we go to MS Now White House reporter Laura Barron Lopez, live from Beijing.
Hey, Jonathan. It's morning here in Beijing, and the president started the second day of his Beijing trip with a post that I just want to read a brief portion of to you. He said that when President Xi Jinping very elegantly referred to the United States as perhaps being a declining nation, he was referring to the damage suffered during the 4 years of sleepy Joe Biden and the Biden administration. And the reason I wanted to read that is because, one, it's unclear when or where President Xi Jinping said this, Jonathan, but the pattern here is one of President Trump more than a year into his second term, blaming Joe Biden for everything as he faces bad poll numbers on the economy back home and voters who are not happy about the Iran war. And again, he's entering the final hours of this trip here in Beijing, of this summit. And so far, it appears that he may walk away with only one deliverable, and he thinks that this is the one that he's going to get. Take a listen.
A lot of things we talked about a lot of things. Too many things to discuss, but a lot of things. We had a very good meeting, but we want things from them. One thing he agreed to today is going to order 200 jets. That's a big thing. Boeing. 200 big ones. That's a lot of jobs. It's a lot. Boeing wanted 150. He got 200. He said, I think it was a commitment. I mean, sort of like a statement, but I think it was a commitment.
I think it was a commitment, Jonathan. And right now, that is the only thing that we have heard from the White House, from the president, in terms of something concrete that could come out of this summit, the purchasing of those Boeing planes. When it comes to Iran and actually getting China to help with ending the Iran war or with reopening the Strait of Hormuz, all that the White House and the president has said is that Xi Jinping thinks that the Strait of Hormuz should be reopened. And when I've talked to allies of the president, that was actually something that they think is the only thing that could change voter sentiment back home, which is if the president were able to walk away from this summit with concrete, actionable items from China in terms of what they would do to try to get Iran to the negotiating table. And as of right now, the only thing we've kind of heard on that front is that maybe China is not going to be sending military equipment to Iran, but we haven't gotten more specifics or details from the White House on what exactly that military equipment is or how long something like that could last, Jonathan.
Wow. MS Now White House reporter Laura Barron Lopez with that live report from Beijing. Thank you very much. Donald Trump has spent years building his political identity around one central image: the deal-making strongman, the man who presents himself as uniquely capable of bending world leaders to his will, the America First negotiator who insists he always sets the terms. But standing beside Chinese President Xi Jinping today, as tensions over Trump's war in Iran and the global economy intensifies, Trump did not look like the dominant leader he claims to be. During their meeting today in Beijing, President Xi warned Donald Trump about Taiwan. It wasn't the other way around. In December, Trump approved $11 billion in defense spending for Taiwan and is now reviewing a $14 billion weapons package. The New York Times reports that according to the Chinese readout of their meeting, President Xi said, quote, "The Taiwan issue is the most critical issue in China-U.S. relations. If Chinese concerns over Taiwan were handled well," he added, "relations between Beijing and Washington could remain stable. Quote, if handled poorly, the two countries will collide or even clash, putting the entire U.S.-China relationship in an extremely dangerous situation," Mr. Xi said. The U.S. must exercise the utmost caution in handling the Taiwan issue. That doesn't sound like someone cowering to Trump's power. And after that meeting, Trump ignored repeated questions about Taiwan.
How were your talks, sir?
It's great.
Did you talk about Taiwan,
Great
Mr.
place.
President?
Incredible. China is beautiful.
怎么样？特朗普总统说谈得很好。Did you talk about Taiwan, Mr. President?
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, did you talk about Taiwan?
Hey, thank you, press. Thank you, press.
So, why does the United States care about Taiwan? The Los Angeles Times explains why Taiwan is essential to combating Chinese military expansion. Quote, a takeover of Taiwan would give China a strong foothold in the region to the detriment of U.S. allies like Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. In addition, Taiwan is home to the world's most advanced semiconductor manufacturing. An attack on the island could trigger a complete disruption to the global tech supply chain. In an interview with Sean Hannity today, Donald Trump pushed back on the idea that China is supporting Iran.
China's support of Iran. How big a discussion was that today?
We discussed it. I mean, when you say support, they're not fighting a war with us or anything.
No.
He said he's not going to give military equipment. That's a big statement. He said that today. That's a big statement. He said that strongly. But at the same time, he said, you know, they buy a lot of their oil there, and they'd like to keep doing that.
They're not fighting a war with us or anything. That's Donald Trump missing the point. China has a leader who's smart enough to realize they don't have to use their military to benefit from Donald Trump's geopolitical mess. According to the Washington Post, a confidential U.S. intelligence analysis reveals since the start of the war, quote, China has sold weapons to Persian Gulf allies of the U.S. as they struggled to defend their military bases and oil infrastructure from Iranian missile and drone attacks. Beijing has also assisted countries around the world struggling to meet their energy needs after the U.S.-Israeli attacks prompted Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz. The report notes that Beijing has incorporated popular criticisms of the war into its public messaging, labeling the conflict illegal. China has long sought to undermine the image of the U.S. as a responsible steward of the rules-based international order, and it views the Iran conflict as emblematic of Washington's cavalier approach to military hostilities. Plus, the New York Times reports that Iran has begun allowing ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. But here at home, the costs of this war are piling up. Today, the House Republicans voted for a third time to continue Donald Trump's war in Iran. Even as new reporting from the Hill shows that congressional funding for Trump's war is, quote, in big trouble. A Republican senator who requested anonymity told the Hill, quote, I think the supplemental funding is in big trouble. I think that's one of the reasons we haven't seen a formal supplemental request. I think that's going to be a very heavy lift. Another Republican senator who requested anonymity said, quote, patience is running out. The public pressure is the big thing. Every time senators go home, they hear from voters who are not in favor of the war. Independents absolutely hate it, and the energy prices are really starting to hurt. Gas prices are now at their highest level in 4 years. The national average is now $4.53, up 2 cents from yesterday, according to AAA. Again, gas was under $3 a gallon before Trump's war began. In every state, all 50 states, the average price of gas is at least $4 per gallon, except for Mississippi, where it's almost there, sitting today at $3.99 a gallon. Before leaving for China on Tuesday, Donald Trump said, quote, I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. Today, MS Now's Alex Tabbitt interviewed a 3-time Trump voter about those comments.
I don't think about Americans' financial situation. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's bull crap. I don't understand how how the war in Iran is impacting us on fuel prices. I mean, me personally, but I'm no politician. What can you do? So,
The fact that he said that he doesn't care about Americans' financial situation.
That's ridiculous. He's a pompous idiot.
Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Senator Cory Booker of the great state of New Jersey. He's a member of the Senate Foreign Relations and Judiciary Committees. Senator Booker, thank you for coming in studio.
It's great to be with you, Jonathan, tonight. Thank you so much.
All right, so we have to get to two big things to come out of Laura Barón Lopez's report live from Beijing. One, your reaction to President Trump's social media post where he blames President Biden for the situation with China. What do you make of that?
I mean, China has been enjoying all the blunders, mistakes, and disastrous foreign policy of this president. This president has mired us in a war in the Middle East yet again. The Straits of Hormuz is closed. We're depleting military equipment. He is seeing us make disastrous relationships with our allies. And China, what's China getting a chance to do? Well, first of all, they're getting tons of money to Iran through their oil sales still, and they're getting more strength internationally in their region of the world. The second thing that's really important is on trade. China is cleaning Donald Trump's clout. Trump said that he would beat China in a trade war. Well, what's happened is American markets, especially for our farmers, for soybeans and commodity products, have shrunk, and China has seized these opportunities because of Donald Trump's chaotic tariff regime. And so what we have here is a president who's just been a flat-out disaster, who goes over there not in a position of strength, but in a position of weakness. And on the world stage right now, he is an embarrassment, and I hear it not only in our country, but I hear it from other countries' leaders as well.
The second thing that Laura talked about, she showed in her report a clip of the president's interview with Sean Hannity of Fox News, where he crows about China making a commitment, it sounded like,
yes,
to buy 200 jets from Boeing. Does that count as a foreign policy win for the President of the United States?
It absolutely does not. I mean, if that's the extent of his wins, a guy who said we would get tired of winning, that is absolutely ridiculous. This man is losing. How do we know his presidency is a sinking ship? It's because of what's the experience the American people are. Ask them if they feel like they're winning when interest rates are up. Ask them if they think they're winning when gas prices are reaching record highs. Ask them if they think they're winning when they're struggling so much under the lies of a president who said they'd keep them out of foreign wars and lower their prices. President Trump has not delivered for the American people. He's created a disaster in the Middle East, and he's weakened us vis-a-vis China in trade, in strategic alignment and strength, and as well in, frankly, in just the grandeur of the United States being diminished.
So, Senator, as you know, you were sitting here as I did the intro. The Iran War Powers vote failed in the House again today after failing in the Senate for the 7th time yesterday. But Republican support appears to be growing. Do you see more Republicans coming over?
I do. Lisa Murkowski now came over and joined us when we put up a War Powers resolution in the United States Senate. They cannot deal with what they're experiencing at home. What they're experiencing at home across the political spectrum is that they're defending an unpopular war that is causing them serious economic pain at home and is going disastrously abroad. They cannot defend this anymore, and it's going to get more and more uncomfortable. We need to keep the pressure on. It's why I'm leading with a group of senators to force votes over and over and again. You're going to own these failures unless you start standing up to President Donald Trump and do what you're supposed to be doing, providing a check and a balance to your overstepping of his constitutional power.
Well, speaking of a check, but a different kind of check, listen to what Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia said today.
Yes.
We're being asked to fund a $1.5 trillion budget, but our request to the DOJ to see the OLC opinion justifying this war, they have refused to allow members of the Armed Services Committee to see it. U.S. senators, appropriators, we're not allowed to see it. What are they hiding? if they will not allow us to see the legal rationale for the war, what are they hiding?
To that point, Senator Booker, what precedent does it set if a president can launch wars and then deny senators access to the legal rationale, the legal justification behind that war?
Yeah, I mean, this is the fundamental insanity of what we're allowing this president to do. War powers clearly lie with the Article I branch of government, Congress. He has launched a war, cost us tens of billions of taxpayer dollars, made the situation worse. The regime's more radical, the highly enriched uranium is still there, the Straits of Hormuz is closed. He's made things worse. And that Congress, controlled by Republicans, is holding virtually no oversight hearings, open oversight hearings, holding him to very little accountability and doing very little check and balancing. This is not how our system was supposed to work. And the enabling, complicit Republicans that are allowing that are not upholding their oath right now. As American soldiers are in harm's way right now, who swore an oath to defend our Constitution, and are putting forward perhaps some of the greatest sacrifices. At home, comfortable Congress people aren't doing their job to defend the Constitution. They're allowing the President of the United States to trash it, and it's unacceptable.
Let me get you on one more thing before we go to a break. ABC News is reporting that Donald Trump is expected to drop his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS in exchange for a $1.7 billion weaponization fund for allies. What's your reaction to that?
The American people are watching them struggle as he grifts off his office, as he finds all these ways to profit off of corrupt regimes, as his sons run around in tow with him from the Middle East to China, doing side deals all the time. He's got a ballroom he's spending $1 billion on, and at home they're saying, what gives? My gas prices are up, my food is up, inflation is up, what gives? How much is this Republican Congress going to let this man prove to be the worst president, causing so much injury without doing anything about it? This settlement is corrupt, unjust, and needs to be stopped by the American people and by Congress people who have backbones.
Senator Cory Booker is going to stay with us. Coming up, Republicans all over the country are racing to gerrymander congressional maps instead of trying to win over voters. And Democrats aren't giving up without a fight. That's next. Tonight, Republicans across the country are making it crystal clear. When they can't win over voters, they'll just try to redraw the maps instead. And Democrats? They appear to be abandoning the old when they go low, we go high approach to Republican gerrymandering. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries told Politico this yesterday, and I am quoting, "We're going to win in November, and then we're going to crush their souls as it relates to the extremism that they are trying to unleash on the American people." Outside of D.C., the state-by-state redistricting wars are accelerating rapidly. Today, Black lawmakers in Georgia gathered at the state capitol to protest Republican Governor Brian Kemp's decision to call lawmakers back into special session next month to redraw congressional and state maps. South Carolina Republican Governor Henry McMaster also reversed course today, issuing an executive order calling lawmakers back for a special redistricting session. If Republicans succeed there, the new map could threaten the seat of longtime Democratic Congressman James Clyburn, one of the most senior and influential Black lawmakers in the country. And in Louisiana today, Republicans moved forward with another aggressive redistricting effort, advancing a new map that would likely give the GOP another House seat, while reducing the state to just one majority Black congressional district centered in New Orleans. Black lawmakers in Louisiana condemned the proposal as a racial gerrymander done at the direction of Donald Trump.
The people of Louisiana are going to remember this. The people of Louisiana will take action. We are setting our state and our country back more than 6 decades. We're going to ram this map down just because one man said, I want this. You got double the number of congressional seats already, but you want another one because your policies are just so great. That must be the reason why we continuously rank at the bottom in education. Your policies are so great. That's why we do so great in healthcare and economic opportunity. Your policies are so great. That's why people are moving to Louisiana in droves. They can't wait to move here because the policies in Louisiana are so great. Make America great again.
So tonight, the redistricting fight is no longer confined to one state or even one region of the country. With Donald Trump behind them, Republicans in red states appear emboldened by the Supreme Court's decision and the fact that, unless they do something, the voters will remove them from power in Congress come November. They're banking on people not taking notice. But the protests and the pushback proves that voters are paying attention, which is why this moment matters so much. Back with us is Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. Senator, as you well know, the Supreme Court, the Calais decision weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, basically made it null and void. You warned the country was being sent backwards in time. When you look at what's happening in Louisiana, South Carolina, and now in Georgia, do you believe that warning is already becoming reality?
It is. We are seeing a Supreme Court, like they did in Plessy versus Ferguson, Korematsu. They are sending us back. Progress is not always linear. We've dealt with this before. And what they're doing, in effect, is eviscerating African-American leadership from the very states that were doing it back in the post-Reconstruction period. And so you cannot ignore that truth. They are perfectly, with surgical-like precision, drawing maps to cut out any Black representation that they can. And that, to me, dredges up a history of our martyrs of this nation for our democracy, people who were lynched, beaten, disappeared like Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. They are dredging up a really bad history as they change these maps that sends us back. And the only choice we have is take a lesson from those martyrs and those who sacrificed, a lesson from those on the Edmund Pettus Bridge who tear gas and billy clubs tried to beat back, a lesson from those in Birmingham who dogs and fire hoses tried to beat back. The lesson is we have overcome in the past and we can overcome now if we take this election coming up seriously and get ready to fight, to organize, and to mobilize.
Let me get your reaction to something that Janae Nelson, the leader of the LDF, their big dinner was tonight here in New York. The theme was "This is our democracy." And in her remarks, she said something that I thought was very powerful. She says, "We are not full citizens if our vote doesn't carry equal power to elect our own representatives. Elected leaders like those in Tennessee who stood up to tyranny can be stripped of their responsibilities, and we are not full citizens if we are punished for collectively using our vote to fight injustice. The most sacred parts of our Constitution are under attack, due process, so on and so forth." I mean, the key thing, we are not full citizens if our vote doesn't carry equal power.
It is 100% true. Even in Rucho versus Common Cause, when the Supreme Court said we can't do anything about partisan gerrymandering, but it is anti-democratic. The story of America, from the suffrage movement to the abolition movement, has always been about trying to bestow upon Americans equality of rights. The founders, as Martin Luther King said on the March on Washington, is a promissory note you wrote when you said all are created equal. And what we see time and time again, unfortunately, is leaders who try to thwart that democracy by trying to take power and concentrate it for the few against the many. And so they're trying to draw maps so that minorities of Republicans can still hold the majority of the seats. That's what's on the line here. This is not politics. This is not left versus right. This is democracy versus going back to a time when we did not have it. The only way we can meet this, though, is to take the lessons from the people who who stood up, who were sick and tired of being sick and tired, who said we're going to make a way out of no way. This is really some time that we have to, all of us, decide what kind of country are we going to live in. Are we going to continue to go down deep into the quicksand and have our democracy swallowed up and lose what we take for granted, or will we fight for it?
Time for one more question, and this has to do with Fox News host Jesse Waters. He made a rather foul comment today about Black Americans. I want you to listen to what he had to say. We'll talk about it on the other side.
I did some research on the blacks, as Judge Jeanine so eloquently would say. The solution to Hakeem's problem, this gay Obama, is baby making. Blacks, for 150 years, have only represented 10 to 15% of the American population, okay? That's not that much. So if they want to have more seats, they got to get in between the sheets.
I wanted to play that, as offensive as that is, so that the American people can hear what's being said in other places about fellow Americans, about us. You've talked about how people need to stand up, and they'll stand up at the ballot box. But what are Democrats going to do to push back against, there's no other way to call it, but a power grab by people who want to not only limit the votes of fellow Americans, but specifically want to limit the votes of African Americans, not only limit their votes, but take away their representation. What are Democrats going to do?
So first of all, I'm sorry, that was grotesque. And I pity him for having such a thwarted view of the world that he sees it as us versus them. It is the blacks, not fellow Americans, not love thy neighbor, but those other people who are trying to take something from me. That is such a dangerous perspective and in my opinion, cancerous one that is fueling the problem we have right now. And I know it's about the Democrats, but I'm one of these people that thinks the Democrats need their comeuppance as well. I get tired sometimes when I see the black legislators having a rally. No, I'm sorry. That's not what I came from. My mother told me stories about her sit-in and joining with people at Fisk. It was a rainbow coalition of people who finally understood is that, as James Baldwin wrote to the great Angela Davis when she was arrested, if they come for you in the morning, they're going to come for me at night. There are great leaders who make us understand that that poor Southern rural person who happens to be white has as much of a common cause as an urban African American, that the immigrant and the Native American and the white American join common cause. The story of this American is fighting against the disgusting perspective of him and understanding that we are all in this together. And there cannot be a democracy secure for anyone unless the democracy is secure for everyone. This is not a black problem. It's not a Democratic problem. This is an America problem. And so rally now. What side are you on? Those trying to tear down our values and our ideals? Or are you going to start standing up and fighting for your country? Because I'm telling you right now, we're seeing the signs of a nation in danger. The warning signs are everywhere. Are you going to sit on the sideline and watch? Or are you going to fight for your country? Because everything every American has right now comes from folks who stood in times of crisis and fought for them. And everybody in this nation benefits from black scientists and inventors and people from different backgrounds. We're all in this together. And I will fight somebody like him, not in a physical way, but in a moral way. We will match his rhetoric with our ability to stand up and act to take back our country and get it back on track.
Senator Cory Booker of my home state, New Jersey, thank you very much for coming to The Last Word.
Thank you.
And coming up, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee are demanding Howard Lutnick, Howard Lutnick resign as Trump's Commerce Secretary because of his lack of candor about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. One of those Democrats, Congressman James Walkinshaw, joins us next. The transcript of Trump Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's interview with the House Oversight Committee regarding his relationship with his former next-door neighbor Jeffrey Epstein is out, and Democrats on the committee are calling on him to resign. quote, "You have publicly maintained that you were one and done with Epstein after a single visit to his home. During your transcribed interview, you were presented with clear evidence that you corresponded and physically met with Epstein on multiple occasions prior to his arrest in 2019, including traveling to his private island where you attended what you described as a social lunch with him and your family. The facts are clear. You lied to the American people and attempted to conceal your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Your lack of candor demonstrates that you are unfit to perform the duties required of you as Secretary of Commerce, and you must step down immediately." Howard Lutnick is not accused of any wrongdoing with regards to Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, what's brought all this scrutiny to his relationship with Epstein is that Howard Lutnick, of his own accord, went on a podcast in October in which he offered a long and detailed story about his new neighbor inviting him and his wife over for coffee in 2005, showing them a room with a massage table. Lutnick says Epstein made a vulgar joke about that table, and Lutnick and his wife bolted.
And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Here's the photo of Howard Lutnick with disgusting person Jeffrey Epstein on Epstein Island, unearthed in the Epstein files. So from the transcript, here's Congressman James Walkinshaw asking the question on everyone's mind. Congressman Walkinshaw, so your position is you were so turned off by him, he was so gross, something weird sexually going on in his house, that you, as a man, Howard Lutnick, did not want to be in a room with him alone. But you were okay with your wife and family being in a room with him? I'm struggling to understand that. Secretary Lutnick, I had an informal conversation with my wife, and that's what we discussed. And I would think that most people who are married would understand. I would think people who are married would understand that conversation with their wife when they met someone who was inappropriate, to say you should avoid him, and I did. If it sounded like gibberish when I read that, it sounded like gibberish to me. Joining us now, member of the House Oversight Committee who was in that hearing, Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia. Congressman Walkinshaw, maybe you have to be a billionaire to get it, but I don't see how you go from he's disgusting and I'll never set foot in his house again to I brought my wife and kids and our friends and their kids to Epstein Island for lunch over Christmas vacation. That is the easiest invitation to decline. Why didn't he?
It's inexplicable. And look, my colleague Ro Khanna, I think, said it well when we came out of the transcribed interview. If Donald Trump had seen that video of Howard Lutnick giving these ridiculous, torturous, awkward answers and explanations, he would fire him. Because if Donald Trump understands one thing, it's he understands visuals and the way things look on video, and it would have been a devastating video. And I think that's why Chairman Comer and the Republicans wanted to cover it up and prevent there from being a video of that exchange. It was that painful.
You know, there's a portion of questioning devoted to Howard Lutnick and Jeffrey Epstein and a company called Adfin. What do we need to know about that? Is there more to look into there?
Well, that is another one of the meetings between Epstein and Lutnick that Lutnick lied about on the podcast. Lutnick's explanation is, yeah, there was an investment made, but he wasn't directly involved in that decision. I think, look, in the category of people for whom we will have more questions in the future if Democrats have the ability to issue subpoenas and hold real depositions with videos, Howard Lutnick is in that category. And that investment, the business relationship between Epstein and Lutnick, is something we got to ask more questions about.
Congressman Lutnick refused to answer questions about his discussions with Trump, citing executive privilege. But no one has asked his opinion of Donald Trump being Jeffrey Epstein's closest friend for 10 years, up to the year before Lutnick says he first met Epstein and was repulsed by him. Why is he refusing? Does executive privilege even pertain in this case?
I don't think it did, by the way. There's no reason he couldn't have answered those questions in the transcribed interview. He was also asked whether he had any conversations with folks at the White House about the interview and his relationship with Epstein. He didn't want to answer those questions as well. So I think there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. But look, the bottom line here is Howard Lutnick is a member of the cabinet secretary. He flat out lied to the American people. And you were right in the opening, not accused of criminal wrongdoing here. But in my view, if you're a cabinet secretary, you flat out lie to the American people. That is wrongdoing, and he should resign.
Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia, thank you very much for coming to The Last Word.
Thank you.
And coming up, Democrats are trying to put some guardrails on Donald Trump's unprecedented corruption as there are new ethics concerns from within the Justice Department about Trump's former criminal defense lawyer turned acting attorney general. Barbara McQuade joins us after the break. As first reported by MS Now's Kevin Fry, Congressman Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, is introducing anti-corruption legislation aimed at putting new checks on the White House. The package of bills, shared first with MS Now, responds to what Democrats see as rampant corruption within the Trump administration. The package touches on everything from the presidential pardon power to foreign meddling in U.S. elections. The report notes the legislation likely won't pass while Republicans control Congress, but could be a preview of what's to come if Democrats retake control in the midterm elections. Congressman Raskin was on MS Now earlier tonight.
What we're facing here is that corruption is not an occasional weekend excursion for them. Corruption is all they do. It's like watching The Sopranos and waking up and what is the scam of the day? What is the ripoff and the caper we're going to do today? They don't have a plan to get health care to the American people or lower inflation on day one or bring down the price of groceries or housing. No, they've got plans to get themselves rich. So this is corruption versus democracy.
There's also new reporting tonight on ethics concerns from Donald Trump's former criminal attorney, now acting attorney general, Todd Blanche. The CNN exclusive says that in March of 2025, a top DOJ ethics lawyer told Blanche that he needed to recuse himself from all cases related to Trump. Quote, the official conducting the briefing, Joseph Terrell, handed Blanche and his then top deputy, Emil Bove, who was also in the conference room, a printed PowerPoint presentation on ethics, according to a former senior justice ethics official who described the meeting to CNN. The report seems to be consistent with a public ethics letter that now acting Attorney General Blanche signed when he joined the Justice Department in February of 2025. Todd Blanche responded in a social media post today, quote, Dear CNN, DOJ ethics rules around recusal are black and white, and rest assured, I'm fully compliant. Joining us now, Barbara McQuade, former U.S. attorney and a law professor at the University of Michigan Law School. She is an MS Now legal analyst. Barb, is it normal for Justice Department ethics lawyers to give the new Deputy Attorney General a PowerPoint presentation on when they need to recuse themselves from cases?
You know, I don't know if it's normal when you've got somebody at that level, but certainly in this case, it was quite unusual in that Todd Blanche had been the personal lawyer for Donald Trump. I don't know that we've seen that kind of situation before. Certainly there are rules about recusals. Most lawyers know from ethics training that they receive in law school and through continuing legal education along the way that you can't represent one party on one side of the V and then turn around and try to represent the party on the other side of the V. And so in this instance, having represented Todd Blanche, having represented Donald Trump, when Todd Blanche is now the Deputy Attorney General or the Acting Attorney General, it does create this appearance of a conflict of interest. For example, when he went down and interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell on behalf of the Justice Department, I think it created at least the impression that he was there as Trump's lawyer rather than the people's lawyer. And so that is where I think we are seeing some of that line blurring.
Earlier today, the Supreme Court announced it would allow orders of the abortion drug mifepristone to go through the mail pending the outcome of an appeal challenge. Barb, were you surprised by that decision today?
You know, I really wasn't. And in particular, I suppose I would say I was not surprised that we saw a dissent from Justices Alito and Thomas, who have been real hardliners on this issue. But remember, this is just a temporary decision. It really preserves the status quo while the case works its way through the courts. It also gives full faith to the justice's decision last year against the idea of nationwide injunctions, because not only did it stop people in Louisiana from obtaining these pills, it stopped everyone in America from obtaining these pills. And so I think this is not surprising, at least at this interim stage.
Let me get you on one more thing. ABC News is reporting President Trump is expected to drop his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS in exchange for the creation of a $1.7 billion fund to compensate allies who claim they were wrongfully targeted by the Biden administration. And this is according to sources familiar with the matter telling ABC News. Barbara, is this legal?
I don't know if it's legal. For one, there's no need to create a fund. There are funds available in the government if people are genuinely wronged. What I worry about what's happening here is an effort to advance this false narrative that there are people who were victims of weaponization of the Justice Department. But to the extent the president is both the aggrieved party here, receiving this benefit of $1.7 million or whatever this amount is, and calling himself the nation's chief law enforcement officer, where he gets to call the shots. Well, if that's the case, then perhaps he too ought to be subject to these very same ethics rules that requires recusal in these situations.
Barbara McQuade, as always, thank you for coming to The Last Word.
Thanks, Jonathan.
We'll be right back. That is tonight's Last Word.